Hello Fairydust crafters, this is Gina here from Fairydust Craft Podcasts. I come to you from my little fairy cave here in beautiful British Columbia, Canada. If you're new here, welcome. This is a place where I talk everything fiber arts, mostly knitting. I am first and foremost a knitter, a sock knitter. But I also do other crafts, and today is Thursday crafternoon, and I would like to show you a little craft that I started a little while ago in the spring, and it's now time to actually finalize everything and take it out. I am talking about my advent calendar, my yarnie sock advent calendar, and it's sitting right here in this box here. If you want to craft along with me, there's only like a handful of things you'll need for this, but I'm gonna tell you why exactly I decided to make my own advent calendar. Coffee's so good today. So last year, I don't think I had a yarnie advent calendar. Advent calendars are a big thing in my family, and it's like one of those things I really enjoy. We don't really do Christmas presents. So last year I didn't have a yarnie advent calendar, but I've been like oogling them and like drooling all over everybody's pictures. So this year, in the spring actually, I decided to make my own. So I thought, I don't want to go through the pressure of like finding advent calendars, and then they're fairly pricey. So I'm just gonna make my own. Having said that, when all the advent calendars, like the yarnie ones, were released, I decided to... Actually, I didn't decide. That was all very last minute. I actually ordered like a couple, and 2 of those just trickled in today. And I'm very excited. So if you are not familiar with yarnie or like fiber advent calendars, there's like so many of them, and I will be participating in Vlogmas this year. So it's kind of like Knitvent, what people call it on social media, where I'm gonna open my advent calendars, and I'm not gonna do like a big thing. I know some people do like literally sit down and talk about things, and like, you know, I'm not gonna do that. What I think I'm doing, and this is just kind of like a rough plan that I have right now, is at one point in the day I will open my advent calendars. I have a multitude of them because, as I said earlier, I like advent calendars, like I like my thing. I will like open them up, and I have, and this is a thing that I actually thought about before I pushed a little order now button. I have plans for every single one of my advent calendars. So it's not that I'm like going in like blindly and I just ordered like yarn advents and then I'll just have a bunch of yarn sitting around. I do actually have plans. For the most part, it's socks, but I will try, and emphasis on try, to actually knit nothing but advent during the month of December. Hopefully, fingers crossed, I'll have like all of my Christmas knitting done by then. There may only be like a pair or 2 of socks, but you know, whatever. But I am hoping that I'll really like get to it as I go, as I open my little advent packages. So I did order a bunch of them, and you'll see, like, I'll explain what they are coming up closer to Advent. But there is yarn, I got yarn ones, and then if you followed around, like if you've been here before and have watched my podcast, you saw that I got a stitch marker advent calendar a few weeks back. So I'll kind of like explain what things are and how they work, but I'll do that kind of like as we get closer to Advent, or as we even just as we are opening those little packages. So what I did in the spring is I thought I'm gonna make my own scrappy sock advent calendar. And what I did, so it is in this little box here. I'm considering moving it into maybe a bowl or a basket or something, or maybe I'll just keep it in this box. I'm not quite sure yet, but this is just like a vessel for now. And in here I have I have 24 tins that are filled with yarn. Now these tins, I actually did quite like think this out before. These tins are a remnants of my last year's advent calendar. It was a David's Tea calendar. So it literally has like the little David's Tea logo and everything on the bottom. But I had the tea advent last year, and what I did is I rinsed, like I washed these little tins real well, and just put them aside because I knew I wanted to do something like this. Like this idea has been like in my mind for, as you can tell, like a while, definitely over a year. So what I did is I have 24 tins, and I did a little bit of sock math. So these tins contain 3 grams of yarn each, and they are little bundles of like 1.5 grams. So what I did is I grabbed my scraps, sock yarn scraps, and a scale. Now you can use a kitchen scale, and if you're a knitter or a crocheter and you don't use a scale of any kind, I highly recommend getting one because these are amazing. So this one is, I do have a kitchen scale that only goes by the gram, and then this one is calibrated a little finer, and it has 1 decimal point. So it has a lid, and the little lid can serve as your little tray here. And I just turned it on. There you go. So it does have like 1 decimal point, which is really, really great if you do, it's just a little finer, so a little easier if you do wanna make sure that you're not gonna play yarn chicken at the end. As I said, I'm like very much a sock knitter, and with socks, depending on what you do, you very likely have leftover yarn. And what I do is that leftover yarn either gets turned into a second pair of socks. So usually with a 100 gram skein of yarn, I wear a size like 7.5, 8.5-ish sock. So with a 100 gram skein of yarn, I can usually get 2 pairs of socks. One of which is a proper, like my favorite kind of like vanilla sock, like a proper mid-calf kind of size sock, with just using the 1 yarn. And then the second one, I have to get a little more creative and use like different yarn for cuff, heels, and toes. But in order to like really make sure that I have enough yarn, I always weigh my yarn before I get started, just so I know that it will be enough or maybe not, or just so I know how much yarn I have to add. And then I get like a pair of shorties. So it's always like 1 regular size sock and 1 pair of shorties. At least one of them has to have contrasting heels and toes. And then sometimes I even have leftover yarn from that. So what I do is I have a little bin here, and I put all of my little yarn scraps in this bin. And oops, it honestly never gets fuller than this. It's just like a little basket that I got from the dollar store. It never gets fuller than this because I constantly keep grabbing from this. And then I have like larger remnants, and I do have like quite small ones like these guys. I believe these are less than 5 grams, something like that. So what you can do when you're making your advent calendar is, if you want to do something that like I do, where you just have like a little stripe for a sock, is just go through your scraps. You can absolutely repeat your colors. Like you can say, oh, maybe I'll just want to do like, I don't know, 6 stripes and just repeat those. So you go in and you just find yourself 6 different colors of yarn, and make sure, and I was trying to be very aware of this, to use the same yarn weight. So honestly, I don't think they're all matching, but most of them are like a merino, like 80-20 blend, something like that. So I was really, when I went through my scraps, I made sure that I have kind of like the same yarn weight, the same quality of yarn, just so you don't have like odd, like thicker stripes and like puckering, if that makes sense. So here's what I did. As I said, I grabbed, you can do whatever vessel you want. I thought what would be really cute is if you just wrapped your little scraps up in like tissue paper and have like thematic tissue paper, like grab a color that goes with something, or like find a theme even, and use a little bit of tissue paper and maybe like a sticker to hold it all together. And like that's all you need. Like it doesn't have to be anything crazy. You don't have to go out. I actually looked up, I tried to find more of these tins on Amazon, and they're not inexpensive. So it can get pretty costly, and that's kind of like what I wanted to avoid. I wanted to really focus on, first of all, using what I have. And most people do have like a little thing of tissue paper sitting around, and like, you know, some sort of vessel to hold their little packages. And then if you have like scrapbooking stuff, you can like go all out and like decorate everything. I thought that'd be really cute. And then the other day I was thinking it would be so cute if there's like, if these were a little bigger, that'd be awesome, because then I could put like a chocolate or something in there. But you can really make it your own and have like the yarnie focus, and add like chocolates or like a little pouch of tea, something like that. So you can be super creative with this, and I just thought it would be such a great alternative to, you know, spending $200. Like, let's be real, that's what they cost on like a all-out full-on advent calendar. Now all you really need, as I said, is your scraps, obviously, your yarn, a vessel of some sort to hold it, your kitchen scale, and scissors, because you do want to like obviously cut it apart somehow. And what I actually did is I started with, and it was a little messy at one point, like I was like, what am I doing? I started with 3 grams, so I weighed out 3 grams of yarn, and then I just cut it in half, so I'd have at least the same size of like scrap. Now here's where the math comes in, and I still have to sit down and actually do a little trial run. I know, so I'm making these socks for myself, and I know with this weight of yarn, with this quality of yarn, I do X amount of rounds for my foot, and it always kind of varies obviously, but I use like a 2.5 millimeter needle, and I know that I usually do anywhere between like 62 and 65-ish. For the most part, it's always like 64 rounds for the foot. And then there's obviously the toe is its own thing, the heel is its own thing, and the cuff is its own thing. So we're just gonna ignore that. And then there's the question of how long do you make your foot. So I thought I would just go by rounds. So if I know that my foot is, let's just make it like super simple, 65 rounds, I have to do the math to see how many stripes I can get out of my one single scrap of yarn. And I thought, okay, maybe if I do either 4 or 5, that should be enough. And I just kind of like added it up and did the math and came to, I believe I wrote it all down. I think I'm doing like 60 rounds for the leg, if I'm not mistaken. So 60 and 64, something around that. So I can actually divide it by 24, because I do have just 24 days in December leading up to Christmas. I am not doing Christmas Day. Christmas Day will be like either finishing the sock with the toe or already having it finished and ready to wear. That was kind of like my goal, is on, you know, Christmas morning I have a pair of socks to wear. But I am excluding Christmas Day. I have one of the advent calendars that I bought, the stitch marker one, has 25 days. So some of them have 24, some of them have 25. You can even say you're doing like 12 days of Christmas and do like a larger scrap and just do 12 days. So whatever you prefer, really. And then I just thought, okay, like this is how many rounds I gotta do. Now, I haven't actually counted, or I haven't actually tried it. I do not know if I will be able to get, I want to say it was 5 rounds. I'm not sure if I'm gonna get 5 rounds out of 1.5 grams. So that's what I'll still have to try out. I highly recommend doing that, because I can, like, you can absolutely follow my notes. I will be, just like with anything, I will be writing everything down in my Ravelry project notes. So if you follow me on Ravelry, you can either follow me on Ravelry and then you can like easily access my notes. I will definitely have everything in my Instagram, and as always I have it in my show notes down here. But I will be like starting, once I have everything like tried out, I will have my advent calendar socks project page. So you can either follow that along, but if your gauge is different than mine, you may end up with more or less rounds. You may end up with more stitches if you're obviously if you're like foot's larger or smaller than mine, you have like a different stitch and a different round count. So those are all things you gotta like just consider. So what I'm gonna do is I will sit down and I'll do just like a little bit of ribbing, like mock ribbing basically. I'll do like 5 rounds of like knit 2 purl 2, something like that. And then I'll grab 1.5 grams of like any kind of scrap yarn, and I'll just see how many rounds I can get out of that. And then I will go back and redo my math if things change. So that's kind of like the plan. Now for cuff, heels, and toes, I am gonna choose a contrasting color, and I believe I'm just gonna do like a cream or a white, something like that, something neutral. But you could say, like, it really depends on your color scheme. You can kind of like match it to your color scheme. You can do like 3 different kinds of colors. I think for mine, I'm just gonna do a cream. Just to really like set that apart from my little advent calendar packages. So I thought that was like a really fun craft and like make my own, and I'm gonna go like small, with just small little scraps. But I also thought, well, if you do want a whole big experience of maybe you wanna knit a shawl. Lots of people do shawls or scarves, or even blankets with they're either minis or like 50 grams. It really depends on like what kind of advent calendar you choose. But if you're somebody who collects minis, and just like, I know a few people who like, that's what they do. They go to a yarn store somewhere and they see cute minis and that's what they grab because they're fairly inexpensive. It's not like you're buying like a lot of yarn. So they're great souvenirs. And if you're one to collect minis, advent calendars, making your own advent calendars out of them is an absolutely fantastic way to use those up. So I'm not a mini person per se. I have a few of them, but like I literally in my scrap, so I bought like, I think it was like 5 or 6 for an actual sock project. But when I buy minis, they're always accompanying an actual 100 or a 50 gram sock skein of sock yarn, just so I can make my pair of socks with it, and then I use that up. So I don't have very many minis, but I found I think like 4 or 5 just random ones. So sock minis, especially advent calendar minis, are usually 20 grams, and for the most part any kind of mini that you buy is also 20 grams. So all you gotta do is grab your mini and like, again, find a vessel to put it in. So like, I always find like the whole like little package with tissue papers or like little paper bags work really, really well, and then you can decorate them and make them look all pretty. With these ones too, if you do decide, I've done this in the past, if you do decide to use like a paper bag, you can again put a little surprise for yourself in there. If you are one with a very big stash, you can obviously like, let's say, split 100 grams in 2s and do 50 gram advent calendars. Those are very popular too, especially for the 12 days of Christmas. I've seen lots of 12 days of Christmas ones where you have 50 grams, and then 50 grams makes, at least for my shoe size, makes a pair of shorty socks. Or again, then you just dive into your stash and grab like a mini and make a proper, even just like a shorter kind of pair of socks for you. So there's lots and lots of ideas out there, and have fun with it. But I thought I would give you a little, like, I'll give you a little input in what I did with mine. You don't have to go out and spend a lot of money on an advent calendar, because you can just make it by yourself, make it yourself if you do have even just a small little stash. I find like I'm pretty sure any knitter, unless you get rid of your scraps right away and you only ever have like your yarn that you use, most knitters have like even just tiny little baskets of stash and like small little remnants. Another thing is I have been talking advent calendars in person with people in the last like couple weeks or so. Like people would ask me where do you find them, and like I want to do an advent calendar but like nobody has them. The reason for that is they do sell in the spring, so usually they go out for pre-order in like March, as early as March or April, and then the dyer has, that way they have all of their pre-orders in and they have time to actually curate and dye that yarn and really like make special little calendars for everybody. Sometimes, now here's a little tip, sometimes once everything has been sent out, people will have like the dyers who like made the yarn or like the trinkets or whatever, sometimes they have leftovers, and those, if you do like somebody's like yarn or color schemes or whatever they do, follow them on Instagram and make sure that now that they're actually trickling in, as I said, I had like 2 of them in my mail this morning. Now that they're trickling in, they will see if they have any leftovers anywhere, and very often those are announced for sale very last minute, like ready to ship, and very often than not they are announced in like Instagram stories, or in like just like on the company's Instagram. And then it's like, we have to, and they're on the website right now. And you know, if you're lucky enough and you see that right away and you do want to commit to that, that's how you still get them. But for the most part, at this point, at this time of year, they're usually sold out. Not all of them, but like a lot of them. I've seen like a few that are still out there. So they are out there, and I just showed you, gave you a few little hopefully inspirations to just make your own. I am actually gonna try and figure this out, do my math and write it all down, so I'll be all ready. And I'm gonna see, I'm not gonna unwrap them obviously, but I'm gonna see what those 2 advent calendars look like that I just had in the mail, and I'm gonna do a little redecorating and get started on putting those out, maybe, or even just finding a spot for them. I am very excited. I hope you are too. If you have ordered any advent calendars, let me know in the comments what you got. I'm always curious. I know there's like advent calendars for spinners out there, which I think are really, really cool. So let me know if you're participating at all. Do you have any plans? All of that, let me know in the comments. And I hope I'll see you soon for our next regular episode here. In the meantime, I hope you're having a wonderful day, and I'll see you guys soon. Bye.